Hello and welcome along to another episode and a weekend review on the Tackling Sport podcast. It's Daniel here, joined once again by my brother Sean.
How's it going?
And yeah, Sean, busy weekend. We've a lot. We could have covered a lot of stuff. There's Premier League action, GA, FAI Cup, rugby. But for this episode, we want to really focus, kind of keep it Irish, I guess, and focus on the FAI Cup final before getting into the GA. And with the two All-Ireland semi-finals, I think that'll be our weekend review. So you wanted to start it off firstly with Dundalk's sensational win over Shamrock Rovers. Really, we're used to these drab 0-0 games in the FAI Cup final. To be honest with you, it was going that way. So how impressed were you with firstly the second half, and then extra time, and then Dundalk finding a way to win?
Yeah, like what Dundalk have managed to do, and to think like it was in the last 50 minutes of that game where they shone. I think it shows you that the characters and the reason why they have been successful under Stephen Kenny, a little bit under Vinnie Perth, and then obviously now under Filippo. I think like I don't think it can be underestimated how big an achievement it is, considering they've gone, you know, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, then played, obviously had an easy enough semi-final against Athlone, 11-0 with 9 different scorers. But I think what they've done is they've used the whole squad in the last, month or so. And they've made the games they played, considering it's been a condensed season. And they talk about, teams in the Premier League playing a lot of games, and, what this Dundalk side have done and what they've achieved. And, it's full credit to them. And considering the season they were having, a few people thought Vinnie Perth's sacking and John Gill's sacking was a little bit untasteful and probably at the wrong time. And a lot of people thought Dundalk were in trouble. But what they've managed to do against, I don't want to say against all odds, but against what a lot of people thought. And, they were very quick to discuss that. Chris Shields in his interview on RT discussed it. Pat Hooban has been tweeting at, the likes of Johnny Ward, who has been, very anti-Dundalk and very pro-Shamrock Rovers, and very quick to discuss how Rovers have been, the standout side, and how maybe Rovers would have done better in Europe. But I think it's full testament to that Dundalk side. And, the likes of Chris Shields, I mean, like, he was absolutely outstanding today. I spoke about him on this podcast. I think he's the most underrated footballer in the Electricity League. Just what he does. And you see it even in the European games. Against Arsenal, like, Arsenal don't tend to play with a number 10, so he wasn't as busy as he normally was, but I thought he was outstanding that night. He's been so impressive for Dundalk now for a number of different years, and it showed today with his performance. And even in the last 5 minutes of extra time, he's still driving Dundalk up the pitch, and I think it's testament to him. And the likes of Andy Boyle and Dave McMillan, who've come back from being in England and Scotland respectively, and to come back and to have this success with Dundalk, because it feels different. It feels different to that, the double winning teams they had, and, the success they had under Kenny, and obviously winning the league with Vinnie Perth. But I think this is a little bit different. There's a few younger players starting to come through, but the crop of that Dundalk side is still there, and fully deserved the win.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that Johnny Ward thing. I saw Dan McDonald tweet saying he fears for someone on his timeline, and I don't know if he'd been building up to the FAI Cup separately about bigging up Shamrock Rovers, but straight away I went, that has to be Johnny Ward, and that's for someone that hasn't really been following. Although I have seen a lot of the stuff, he's been really pro Shamrock Rovers. But sure, we had all the crack last year with him, tipping Rovers to 6-5 to win the league after 5 or 6 games. So
yeah, no, and look, I don't necessarily think he's overly wrong with his thing about Rovers, because I think Rovers are a really good side, but I think he's been
no,
very...
they're the better side, aren't they? Like, the league shows that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Or do you think they're probably a little bit closer than the
I,
league based on Europa League and stuff?
yeah, it's probably hard with the condensed season of the league, but Rovers have been building up to it, so you can't argue that they didn't deserve to win it this year. I don't think they're... I think they're two evenly matched sides, and obviously the FAI final proves it. But I think, Johnny Ward's right in the fact that Rovers are a really good side, but he's probably been a little bit critical of Dundalk at times. And maybe, I think there was a tweet about Sean Gannon saying something, and this is how far Dundalk are. But look, I think Dundalk have been unbelievable ambassadors for the league in Europe in the last, 5 or 6 seasons, and what they've done domestically. And I think, like I said, this considering what they've been through in Europe and the games, and, playing league games, and they had to go to patch to get a result to make sure they're in Europe next season, and they did that, and to win the cup, it's full credit to that group of players. And like I said, they've used a lot of different players in the last few weeks with injuries, and their standout players shone through again. And obviously Dave McMillan, who, like I said, was over in Scotland for a few years, had a few different loans, signed for St. Johnstone, and he was so pivotal in that Stephen Kenny Europa League team, and to come back to Dundalk and really shine again, and hat-trick in a cup final is an unbelievable achievement.
Well, last thing on that, there, what I've seen to follow, there are some Dundalk fans in general that were, despite, like, you look at it on paper, what an unbelievable season, second half of the season, Europa League, group stages, FAI Cup win now. But for people on the outside that don't quite know, there were a few Dundalk fans just in general not too impressed with certain team selections or certain league performances, I guess. Or am I following that correctly?
Yeah, look, I think the end of the Vinnie Perth, John Gale era was a really interesting time, and a few people thought it was handled wrong. Look, there was people critical of Vinnie Perth, but I still think for the service that he had given to Dundalk, and same with John Gale, two very well respected men in Irish football, that it probably could have been handled a little bit better. Sacked after the Champions League defeat, and they were poor that night. Defensive errors cost them. Like I said, there was a lot of people worried for Dundalk, but what the introduction of Filippo and Giuseppe have done to Dundalk is unbelievable now, and I think the proof's in the pudding. Europa League and now Cup winners, and it hasn't always been pretty at times this year for Dundalk, but I think if you actually look at our squad and you see them, that the experience of the likes of Gartland, Boyle, Shields, Rogers, I mean, it kind of shone through tonight. And look, I think Rovers will be disappointed with how they played. A team with that attacking capability they have would like to offer up a little bit more from open play. Two corners coming from Jack Byrne, crosses, which anyone who's watched the League of Ireland knows how good at set balls he is. And I think Rovers will be disappointed. They got they got 2 goals from that, and didn't get one from open play, which would have been the difference really in the game. And what was at times a scrappy enough game and a scrappy enough pitch in December, where every time you looked at a player, his breath was coming in rising into the sky. I think it kind of showed what it was, and it took a while to get going, maybe the players to get warm, and then after that, the extra time and the second half of normal time, it was just so fully committed, and you probably saw the best of the League of Ireland. And like I said, full credit to Dundalk, because at the start of the in July and August, a lot of people weren't giving them much hope of anything, and they've mustered something very good out of the season. I think both clubs would be happy with the season they've had. Rovers probably would have liked to get a little bit further in Europe, considering the squad they have and the fact that they were playing games in the lead up to Europe. But I think when you draw AC Milan, you're never really going to get through, are you? But I must say, both sides would be happy with the year. And like I said, it's going to make the league very interesting next year. The likes of Derry, who've made Europe this year, Bows, who probably tailed off a little bit at times, they thought they were in a title race. And I still think it'll be one between the two, and a lot will depend on whether Dundalk and Rovers can keep their best players. But I think it does make for an exciting year next year. We don't know what's going to happen with fans, but both sides have done really well considering the season we've had.
Yeah, and fair play to FAI or the league in general for getting the season off and running. But I want to have a little quick comparison before we move on to the GAN. Just speak very briefly about Jack Byrne. There's a potential move to Apoel Nicosia now with Mick McCarthy managing there. Now, when I clicked on a couple of articles, no one was quoting anything. It was just, you know what I mean? There was no actual quote or if there is any interest. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. But a lot of Irish League fans League of Ireland fans were getting a bit upset about why would Jack Byrne move to Cypriot League. On paper, you'd look at it, I think the crowds are not too dissimilar to Irish crowds. But there's serious investment in the Cypriot League in terms of prize money, in terms of TV deals into the Minions, whereas in Ireland they're only getting 100,000. And I'll get into the Jack Byrne thing into a second, but even just a quick comparison between the Cypriot League and the League of Ireland down the rabbit hole I went down earlier shows you that how terribly the FAI have ran the League of Ireland over the last 20 or 30 years. I know that's such an obvious thing to say, but there you are. There it is in black and white. And Jack Byrne, with Cyprus getting 2 Champions League spots, I think next season it would be a no-brainer move for him, really.
Yeah, look, I think
yes and no.
I think Jack probably has a little bit of unfinished business probably in his own head in England, but I think everything, all the senses you get off Jack Byrne, and even an interview during the week where he was talking about playing for your people and playing for Dubliners, and representing a club that is involved in your city. Obviously Jack from the north inner city and maybe not a Rover stronghold, but I still think that idea of identity is playing a huge part of Jack Byrne's life. And considering where he was after Man City and then Kilmarnock and being on loan and sort of being in and around, he was in Holland as well. But I just don't think he ever quite found himself. Maybe he's a bit of a home bird, but, like I said, he's added something to the league. And, this goes back to the point where, that what the League of Ireland has done in the last, probably 10 years, maybe even less, has been organic growth. It's been growth from within. It's been visionaries like Stephen Kenny that has developed this league into what it is now. And without, and it must be said that the work of Michael O'Neill and that Rovers team that were sort of, if you like, I wouldn't say groundbreakers, but I think what they did to get to that Europa League stage and that I don't think I remember watching that game at White Hart Lane when they went 1-0 up in the Europa League, and that kind of sense that ever since then you've seen a real growth in the League of Ireland. And Jack Byrne probably doesn't come back and play for Rovers if the league isn't what it was 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So I think, like I said, that growth has been organic. It's been by the likes of Michael O'Neill, Stephen Kenny, and now credit goes to John Caulfield for that Cork side that have really grown the league into what it is. And, everyone knows about the funding issues. A win in the Europa League is, I think it's 10 times what, winning the league, and probably even, I think it's even more what winning the league in the electricity is prize money wise, and the TV deals aren't great. And, the likes of Air have come on board, and, RTE, and you're hoping Virgin Media maybe in the year or so come in and board, but there still is huge issues to the league. And this, I think everyone likes summer football. I think it's good. But in the sense that, summer football offers an opportunity for the FAI to really grow the game and become one of the premier, summer sport or summer leagues in Europe, which I think there's only a handful of other leagues that are, but they don't seem to be getting any traction from that. And
no.
Now, look, we could sit here all day and discuss how badly the run the SSE Electricity League is, but I think credit has to be given to, like some Michael O'Neill, Stephen Kenny, John Caulfield, who's developed the league into what it is,
in spite of the FAI.
And that you see a team like Rovers be disappointed against AC Milan, and you see the likes of Jack Byrne and all these guys that have, in the last couple of years, that have been in Ireland squads and been called up. It's because of those guys, and because the league is what it is, and it's grown, but there's a certain ceiling that, that organic growth can go to. And I don't think it can go much further without the investments. And you see the troubles that, Waterford have had, and the running that's been done in Waterford since Lee Power's taken over. You see remember the stuff around the European spot going to Pats, I think it was. And there's so many clubs that have been badly run, and I think it's a huge issue, naturally.
Yeah, they've been badly run, but they're definitely not being helped by the league. And I just thought that prize money stat was startling. Let's move on to I suppose, from one league that sells itself short on the TV deals to maybe you could argue another organisation in the GA. But before we get on to the GA, I want to quickly touch on the All-Ireland semi-final there on yesterday with the LGFA and the absolute mess between Galway and Cork, wasn't it? The game was originally for the Gaelic grounds. That was called off, was moved to Parnell Park, and at about 11 or 12 it was moved into Crow Park from a 1:30 throw in Parnell Park to a 1 o'clock throw in Crow Park. It's not even up for debate. This would not have happened in a men's game at all under any circumstances in any fixture in men's. I'm thinking club championships right the way down. This would not happen. This has happened purely because the LGFA are a separate organisation to the GA. When I've talked to people in the LGFA, like Stephen Duff and a few other people, they're kind of wary of coming back to the GA in the sense that, it's nice being their own organisation to a certain degree, but this is an absolute mess, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a players representative meeting next week, and I think that will tell us a lot what will happen. The Galway manager has come out and said he wishes players walked off the pitch and refused to play. I think, it would have been a huge statement. Like you said, look, the whole issue comes from the LGFA and the GA being a split organisation and split funding and split decision-making. And, yes, you could argue common sense could have been used and RT maybe shown the game or whatever it was. But look, it's at the end of the day, it's happened. And I think what it shows is, I think the Gaelic rounds wasn't used because I think Limerick are training on it for the All-Ireland.
That was it. It wasn't even called off for weather. That was because Limerick wanted to train.
Yeah, and look,
straight away
could you argue, why aren't they allowed to have that? It's their pitch. And I think that's where the whole issue with the LGFA and the GA comes in. I think Armagh are maybe the only county to own their own pitch. The LGFA Armagh own their own pitch, and I think that's a huge issue. If they are to be a separate organization, you talk about funding, and we'll get on to funding later, I'm sure, with Dublin, and in terms of the money that the GA has. There is positives, look, for the reason the LGFA are split. You think of the attendances at the All-Ireland finals in the last few years have been driven on the basis that, Lidl are sponsoring it. It's a separate idea. They can really promote the games and the finals and, what we've seen. But, incidents like that. And I think at the end of the day, it's just sort of the player welfare, and is the player getting looked after and best represented by the LGFA. And I'm sure that meeting that is due next week will tell us a lot. And because, when you read stuff on Twitter, it can kind of get lost in the fact that, everyone, you can kind of get lost sometimes that they're two separate organizations. And I think that's the big, that issue doesn't happen if it's one organization. But I think, like I said, does 40,000 go into Croke Park if it's one organization? So there is that.
Yeah, well, I guess almost they've done the heavy lifting for those All-Ireland finals. There's no reason why they shouldn't be under the same umbrella. Like, when you look at it logically, it reminds me a little bit of the BDO, PDC darts kind of split. Like, but again, you got to just think of people like looking in as well. Like, not just get rid of the internal politics here and sort it out. And I don't know if it's a GA problem, an LGFA, but just to go over what happened exactly. So the decision to move the game was made in the interest of player safety because of the pitch. A request to accommodate the fixture was made to the GA at 10:20. And the LGFA was informed at 11 that the game could be played in Croke Park. And the Galway team first received notification of that at 10:53, that there was an issue with Parnell Park, and they were travelling at the time. So the throw-in was brought forward half an hour. Cork were based in Dublin.
Cork were staying in Dublin. And I think that's sort of, people talk about unfair advantage. Like, they were staying in Dublin, so it didn't affect their travelling. But I think, like you said, the Galway team travelling up, I mean, it really is this, a farce.
Yeah, and the game, it didn't even get underway to 1:10, so to give them an extra 10 minutes. But the game wasn't being able to show because TJ Carr already had their cameras set up in Parnell Park. But then you think if RT, the crew were only just arriving apparently. But then I'm thinking, there's so many people there, but someone just not live stream it. Like
there was Instagram lives, there was stuff like that. The
Well,
radio came on for the second half, but still, like, it's not good enough. The fact there's no fans, so, like, someone's parents can't be there, their partners, whatever it is. And I think, look, in the year 2020, it probably heightens that problem. And maybe it is the final straw. Maybe I think it could be, the fact that it's an All-Ireland semi-final.
And even going back to the funding issue we discussed a few weeks ago as well, I think if the GA can get the total amount of funding for all sports and then dish it out from government, you could potentially be a lot fairer than, because the funding, as we all know, it's all political. It's how you can look for the funds off government. So the fact that the LGFA, like, they've just failed in a lot of aspects of it. So I do think definitely going forward there needs to be something. But it was just absolutely, I thought, disgraceful. And Timmy Rabbit, the Galway manager, like you mentioned, reacted very angry and wasn't too happy about it. And like, the game was won well by Cork in the end, so it wasn't too, it wasn't a 1 point to 2 point margin, but it was it's still not, like you said, it's definitely the highlight, the big, I thought it was despite the two All-Ireland semi-finals taking place this weekend, I thought it was important to mention it. We'll go to those All-Ireland semi-finals. I don't know where you want to start. I think we'll kind of leave the funding thing to the very end and just focus on the two games first. I thought Dublin Cavan. I want to speak a little bit about Brian Fenton. I know you want to as well. Just what an absolute phenomenal athlete.
Yeah, and I think it's those things can kind of get lost at times. And I think it's the same with some of the Mayo players that, when you see two All-Ireland semi-finals being won by, upwards of, 12 or 13 points in both sides, I think, look, and that's with a very spirited Tipperary comeback. I think it's an issue. But I think if you look at the quality of football and athleticism from the Dublin and Mayo camps, I think it's the reason they are, up there in probably the top four football in counties at the moment in the men's game. Brian Fenton is, I think he's just, I don't know. I don't think I've seen a player myself that is just can do anything. Like, I do have visions in my head that, like, he can play fullback, he can play centre back, he can play midfield, anywhere on the pitch. And I said it to you yesterday. I saw him play in the National League in Croke Park, and when you're in Croke Park for league games, you're not really focused on the match. You're kind of focused on, you might look at different players, and because you're at a certain level, and there's so much space, you can really see a player. And I think
you might see something no one else will, just purely because you're watching a player for 10 minutes. Yeah, I've done the same.
Yeah, and I remember Dermot Connolly in a Roscommon game in the league doing the same for myself. But Brian Fenton, I watched against Tyrone. I think it was 2018 in the first league game, and I remember just sitting there going like, "This fella is, he's the best player I've seen. Probably the best athlete, not the best footballer in terms of skill, maybe a Colin Cooper or a Dermot Connolly or David Clifford, whatever. But in just terms of, the best player." I tweeted saying he'll not go. He won't just go down as the best midfielder Dublin have ever had. He'll go down as Dublin's greatest ever player. And I stand by that, because you just watch him there. I think he kicked 4 or 5 points. He kicked them with ease. Like he didn't really get out of second gear at times. And he's just, there's very few players who've given him, a proper run in midfield. Kerry have tried the Jack Barry man marking him, and at times that's worked. If you kind of flood the midfield, I think that's
was it the first game of last year's All-Ireland final, the first game he was man marked, was it for most of the game? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and they kind of gave David Moran a little bit more space, and that can kind of work at times. But by doing that, you're kind of sacrificing to yourself that Brian Fenton is going to kick 2 points, really, because he's that good a footballer. And do you change your whole game to stop him maybe kicking 3 more points or whatever it is? I think he's just that good, really. And I think the best thing for him is that he hasn't really necessarily been a star coming through. He kind of made his breakthrough in UCD, and what he's done with the Dublin team. And if he does win the All-Ireland this year, it'll be his 6th consecutive season without losing a game. Like, it's bonkers, really. But he's been a standout player for Dublin, and I think Cluxton can probably be replaced in time. James McCarthy maybe, but I think Brian Fenton is probably, if you were to take one, if you were someone going for the Dublin Mayo game, if you asked James Horan, take one player out of Dublin, who would it be? It would probably be Brian Fenton. I mean,
Brian Fenton, an interesting debate, isn't it? Yeah,
Brian Fenton is probably in the top 1 or 2. I think
we have a top 3, I think, isn't it? Cluxton, Fenton, and Kieran Kilkenny. They're the 3 players.
Because I think they all kind of, Johnny Cooper can orchestrate the defense, but I think Philly could maybe play that role, or Keane O'Sullivan. I know, he's not what he once was or whatever, but I think Brian Fenton in that midfield, no one can get near him. And it's interesting. Like, Aidan O'Shea's played in a full forward. Like, what are Mayo going to do against Brian Fenton? Are they going to play Matty Ruan there? Is Dermot O'Connor going to maybe man mark him? But then you lose a lot of Dermot O'Connor going forward. But I think, Brian Fenton, he's just getting to a stage where, like, you expect him to kick 3 or 4 points. I think it was his first All-Ireland final. He got man of the match. And he kind of surprised everyone with how good he was. And I remember
2015 against Kerry.
I'm pretty sure he was man of the match in that game. And you're just thinking, like, how good can this guy become? And he's he's passing everyone out, I think, in terms of his quality.
Even, like, for example, like Jack McCarthy, I think we touched on this yesterday when we were chatting. Jack McCarthy, like, you think he would be in that top 3 or 4 players that Dublin can really do, can't go without. And then he was replaced with Robert McDade, who just came in almost seamlessly, scored 1-2, and I think he had 30 plus possessions as well, which was phenomenal.
Yeah, and like I said, Robbie McDade played really well, scored 1-2. He's been very good this championship, and he's probably been the one major addition, if you like, and Paddy Small's kind of getting a proper run in the side that, like, if anyone who's watched Dublin club football would expect Paddy Small to eventually come good. But I think it probably just shows you how important the system is, and how you can fit players into. When you have a good system, you can fit anyone into that system. And Jack McCaffrey is not playing this year, and you think he's a big loss. But I think the system and Robbie McDade shows you that, I don't want to say anyone, but I think most senior club footballers in Dublin could probably play wing back and score a couple of points. And that's not putting anything down on Robbie McDade, because he deserves this opportunity. He's been in the Dublin panel for a number of years, never really quite got his opportunity, and worked with Desi Farrell before, being a big player for Ballybowden. And I think he's deserving that he gets his chance, and he's taking it.
Well, yeah, it almost kind of reminds you of Niall Scully. Like, when Niall Scully came in, you almost thought it was similar to that Robbie McDade. Okay, there's maybe a number of players that could play the role that Niall Scully came into play initially, whereas now he's become such an integral part of the Dublin team that, so, you know, that's probably where Robbie McDade he's probably looking in the next, I don't know if I want to call him Robert or Robbie, but or Rob, but it does seem that he could potentially make that role as well. But I kind of do agree to your point that I guess in some of those positions, because Dublin are so good, as long as you're on the ball, you're doing the right things. But going back to Dublin just in general, like some of the absolute ruthlessness, and it is important to say, and it does get lost in the funding a bit, in fairness, that like these lads are never not up for a game of ball at all. Like it's ridiculous how much they want to hammer the team, how much they want to always do the right options. And that's been instilled by Pat Gilroy, by Jim Gavin, and now Desi Farrell, who again is probably not getting the credit he deserves, and to a certain extent, because he's come in and it's not just been a seamless transition. If anything, this Dublin team is just even improving further.
Yeah, and like there's probably like less than a handful of times you remember Dublin being really off the pace. Probably one is a couple of years ago in that National League opener up in Clonus, and I think they were less than a week back from their holidays, and you know it was a really good game up there. And like those kind of things, like, and when it comes to the crunch and the meat and bones of Dublin and that Dublin team really stand to the fore, and you know the likes of Kieran Kilkenny, like they're only getting better. And I don't know, how good they can get, but I certainly think they are getting better. And I think the big thing is the skills. And if you look at the skill of like Kieran Kilkenny kicking on the run, and it's unbelievable. But I think it's the improvement that you see in these players. And I was very critical of Dean Rock maybe 3 or 4 years ago of maybe not being the best in open play and not being the best at winning the ball. And I always thought when Dublin didn't play well, it was because there was a lack of movement inside and they couldn't get the quick ball in. And he's really upped his game in the last few years at that. And I must say he's gone from being like just really known as a free taker and probably the best free taker in the country to probably one of the most potent forwards in the country now. And I think he's added that. And if the likes of Dean Rock can get two or 3 points from play, I mean, it makes a huge difference if he's kicking 4 or 5 frees. And that's what Keelan O'Connor has in his game. He's always been good at that, scoring from play. And I think Dean Rock has maybe matched O'Connor at that. But look at,
like you said, it's just on that skill point you said. Sorry to cut across. I don't know if it was just yesterday in general, but going back a few years ago, Paul Flynn used to kick the ball so high, and I've never seen a player kick the ball as high. But I just think all these players, they're either caressing the ball over the bar like Brian Fenton, or they're kicking. Dean Rock hit the ball and he didn't even touch it. And when I'm saying it's going high, it's going like over the post to a point where I'm like, is that over or not? It's just amazing how high they're kicking the ball. I don't know if that's been coached at all, just because they seem to kick it higher. I mean, just in terms of shooting for scores, they always their ball seems to go either higher or there's just no effort put in at all. Like Brian Fenton hits wides so beautifully. I've never seen a man hit a wide so beautifully. Like, to be honest, between doing that at one end and then the other side, Kieran Kenny just hits up in the air, and the ball just sails over the bar. Like it's unreal. And like you said, the skill set, I think a lot of them can kick off both feet. Now, particularly Kieran Kenny. I don't know if he has a weak foot, to be honest.
And Dean Rock has had that. He kicked 2 off the left, and
yeah, Dean Rock.
When you kind of remember Dean Rock starting, he probably
necessarily. Well, he was a super sub to start with. I remember that, and then
he was a huge player in the O'Byrne Cup, and everyone was like, when is he getting his run? Because obviously the comparisons to Barney, and every time you looked at a program or looked at a list and you watched an O'Byrne Cup game, it'd be Dean Rock 1-7 and it'd be 334 in the O'Byrne Cup, and you'd be wondering, geez, when is he getting his chance? And he's got it. And it's the same with a lot of those players. Like I remember watching Scully in an O'Byrne Cup game and then a Scorty, and he's the only one from that team that I can now think is playing for Dublin. I think he scored 2-1, and one goal was a long booted ball in. But when you're watching that O'Byrne Cup game, you're thinking, can any of these go into the Dublin team and break in? And I think it's the same with a lot. Once you break into that Dublin team, and Niall Scully's done it, once you do a job in there, you have to
you can grow from within the team, but to get in, you just got to get in. You got to get it's probably a little bit of luck on the way for these lads, because there's very little maybe separating a Niall Scully from another lad initially, or Robert McDade and another lad initially.
And I think, and Niall Scully has proven that, and Jim Gavin always trusted Niall Scully in the big games. And I think that's, he does a lot of the donkey work in there and might necessarily score as much as another wing forward does. But I think that shows, and that's probably another bound to the success of Dublin.
Let's move on to Mayo, because I think a lot of people's spirits were lifted when we saw Mayo's performance. How impressed were you, firstly, in terms of their performance? I know there was a lot of goal chances for Tipperary, I suppose, throughout the game. And to be honest with you, the first 10 minutes was just pinball back and forth. It was madness, to be honest with you. Yeah, but what did you think of Mayo?
Yeah, impressed. Like I said, we said on the show, Aidan O'Shea has to play a full forward. I think that's where you get his best. Like he was just so good today. Like even like he got a point, where he
Was it
laid one off the
high
high ball in. Yeah,
he caught it and then just fisted over the back?
yeah. And
Right-handed.
I just thinking, like I said to Dad here, I said, who's going to stop him? And I was like, Philly McMahon, but Philly, he just shouldered your man. He just used his body, got on the inside and popped it over. And there was another one where, for O'Connor's goal, where the ball comes to him and it's just that the skill and the execution of the pass, it's just a little tap and O'Connor does a break stride and it's the goal. And, I must say, I was impressed with Mayo. I still think there's probably a little bit more they have to do to get to that level defensively. Like I said, a few long balls. And I think the difference between the long ball Cavan put in and the long ball Tipperary put in is every time Tipperary put in a long ball, especially in that first half, it was a diagonal ball. It wasn't a booted straight down the middle. You can do so much more as a forward when the ball's diagonal. You can fend off your man a lot easier, so that you kind of use your body so that you have free access to the ball. Whereas if the ball's punted straight down the middle, and that's what Cavan did on Thomas Galligan, they punted it straight down the middle. It's so much harder to attack, and it's so easy, I think, for a defender to get set under it. Whereas if that ball's got a little bit of angle, you can really attack the ball in the air. And I think that's what Tipperary did, and they exposed Mayo at the back. And James Horan would have been delighted, obviously, with the result, and at halftime the game was done dead and buried. But I still think he'd be looking at that, knowing his experience, knowing that they have to reach another level or two. You don't give, Dean Rock, Conor Callahan those goal chances.
Cian O'Connor, is he even improving further as a footballer?
Yeah, look, I think he's got a lot of bad press. I think the problem with
Hasn't he? Yeah.
I think the problem with him is, I think the captaincy maybe held a burden on him and he tried to do too much. And I think that Mayo team tried to do too much. You think like 2015, 2016, when they were at their pomp, if you like, that team, where you could literally rattle off the 1 to 15, like they were by the keeper, but you could rattle off that team, the consistency of it. But I always thought there was an air of desperation in them. Like, there was a lot of late tackles and arms around the neck and
panic on the ball sometimes.
Panic on the ball.
And it was even evident
today,
2 minutes before halftime. I maybe remember this wrong. There was just a stupid hand pass given away. Where you're like, what are you doing? Like,
and Paddy Durkin
against Dublin. If you do that against Dublin twice, the game's over. That's it.
Paddy Durkin hit 3 shots. He scored a point, but I think he hit 2 into the keeper and missed 1 left. And you just can't do that against the top teams. But going back to Cian O'Connor, like that, he's kind of, maybe he's just broken the shackles a little bit more. And his brother was captain. And I think maybe the National League win has eased maybe the little bit of pressure. And naturally they want to win in All Ireland, but his scoring record is frightening. And I know they play a few games in the Connacht Championship, and then you could say the same about Dublin, where if you play Sligo or New York or whatever, you're going to rack up the titles or the totals. But I must say he's been an unbelievable player, and like I said, I think he's only got 1 All-Star.
Wow.
You could argue you could probably have a few more, and then you look at it, and there's always one maybe forward like a Paddy McBrearty or Conor McManus that Conor McManus, the amount of All-Stars he's won, and then you compare it to Cian O'Connor, and I think he's probably been unlucky in that sense. But no, I think he's, after that performance today, he's a shoo-in for an All-Star.
Absolutely, it was unbelievable. Well, I want to touch on something Andy Moran was saying on Off the Ball. So I was listening to a lot of the Off the Ball coverage before they started, and he's having an interesting chat with Joe Malloy just in terms of Mayo's why they could always stay with Dublin in the big games, and they always fancy themselves because they did have the physique in terms of they'd always match Dublin physically. And he was talking about now he's kind of going from the sense that like he looks at Lee Keegan, he's a once in a generation kind of guy, and where you're looking at Dublin, the likes of Kilkenny, Fenton, they basically have 10 or 11 years of just proper S&C work, and they're constantly building. But that kind of what he was kind of getting at there just before the Tipperary game, now before they kind of went and kind of proved him right in a sense that they Mayo won't, it's kind of a cliche here over the next 2 weeks, but they will match Dublin physically everywhere bar maybe that midfield area. But in terms of like the half back line, the full forward line, the half forward line, they'll really fancy themselves at matchups. Can you see there any way of Mayo potentially causing an upset, because I didn't up until, like, I knew that performance was in Mayo, and I know Tipperary are Division 3 side pretty much, but or they are, sorry, but I definitely think there is something in that, and I definitely think Mayo will. It's the old cliche, they won't fear the Dubs, but I think last year they're a lot better team than they were last year, and I think the improvement they've made from last year is a little bit bigger than the improvement Dublin have made from last year.
Yeah, and I think the fact that, like you said, the matchups, they always have seemed like, I don't really recall too many matchups where you've thought, oh geez, Mayo have got that horrendously wrong. Chris Barrett shouldn't be marking Kieran Kilkenny, or or they shouldn't do this, and all that stuff with the goalkeeper probably is the only thing that they've massively got wrong. And Aidan O'Shea when he marked Donaghy, and that kind of all sort of worked. But I think the physicality, I think maybe it got underappreciated with that Mayo team, and maybe it was put in the bracket of, geez, they're workhorses that they won't give up for Mayo, and maybe, like you said, a lot of praise has to go to what they've done, and what they've built over the years. Look, I still go back to the thing. Of course, Mayo can win the All Ireland. Look, they probably aren't as good as team and maybe as long on the road as what they were in 2016, and a few key players aren't playing anymore, but they still have the bones of that team. And I think Tommy Conroy inside is a brilliant forward. I think he's got the movement. The one thing, like the thing about Tommy Conroy is that the sharpness across the ground, but his movement. I mean, I don't know any. I think Mick Fitz will mark him, but I don't know any Dublin defender who is going to enjoy marking Tommy Conroy. And if you just watch his movement and for some of the points in the Tipperary game, it was fantastic. McLaughlin at 11, he's been a real plus for them as well this year. So I think they've seemed to. The one thing that was maybe labelled at Mayo is they had that set 1 to 15 that they never really brought players on or players into that. And I think a big push by James Horan has gone back to the clubs and gone to the junior sides, and it's something that Pat Gilroy did as Dublin manager, and it's been done. And the likes of Darren Daly, Fingal Ravens playing for the Dubs, and Eric Lowndes maybe not playing as much as he wanted to. But I think that idea of getting everyone from in and around the county, and it was maybe only Donny Vaughan who was playing for a junior club, and he's now since moved to a senior club. So I think that has really added to them, and some of the footballers they're able to have. And I must say, I'm very impressed with Tommy Conroy inside. And, I think, like I said, Mick Fitz might mark him, but then who's going to mark Killian O'Connor? And I think that's the difference now. If you've got another player like that inside where, teams should be frightened. Teams should be frightened when they come up against Tommy Conroy inside. And I think that's what Mayo have now. And look, of course they can win. I think it's gonna be a really good game.
The handicap's set at 6, which straight away is kind of, you're excited for the game because the handicaps are usually not too far wrong, and it does seem that I really hope it's a good game. Like, I think it will be. Because I like just what Andy Moran says, they do match up really well physically. They have runners that will just run with these Dublin lads all day. They're one team that are actually able to match Dublin just for the freak and natures they have. And the once in generation talent, and then
I think I don't want to keep going down the Mayo sort of road and the fact they haven't won an All Ireland, but I'm sure Aidan O'Shea, Killian O'Connor, Lee Keegan, David Clark are going to be sitting around a training on the old fashioned Tuesday. They don't train on Monday or whatever, but they're going to be sitting a train on Tuesday and going, Jesus lads, like, God knows what's going to happen next year at the championship. Kerry are going to have a bee in their bonnet. Donegal, Tyrone under the new management. This is, I mean, we've said it. This could well be the last chance. No fans here, no distractions. Free shot at the Dubs, I think. And if they lose, no one's going to say, well, the talk's not going to be about Mayo bottling it. It's going to be about Dublin and how to stop Dublin. And I think that's what Mayo got to do. The couple of interesting things, and I'm sure we'll have an All Ireland preview show.
We will.
But the big areas are, midfield. Conor Loftus has moved from at times centre forward, wing forward, out to midfield. He's quite good. He's mobile. He's got that energy to get up and down the pitch. Matthew Rowan as well. How they mark Fenton? I think he's that big a player. What are they going to do? But Philly McMahon is going to have to start for Dublin because of Aidan O'Shea. Because if Aidan O'Shea plays in at the square, Philly McMahon's going to have to mark him. So all of a sudden, that changes Dublin's game plan. And Dublin don't often change for teams. But I think they're going to have to change for Aidan O'Shea because he's that point. I mean, that point that he got where he fisted over, that scared me, as a Dublin fan. Like that, the ease that he eased there. the Tipperary fullback off and to just fist it over with. I think that would scare Desi Farrell, and I'm sure Philly McMahon will start. But those are the two big areas, probably the two big players on either side, Aidan O'Shea and Brian Fenton. But look, of course, it's going to be a close game. Dublin are rightly favourites, 5 in a row. They've done it. Mayo, haven't won in All Ireland since 51, but it's the year the underdog. And I actually, a couple of weeks ago, after Waterford won, and I saw tweets about this is Waterford, I said I'd put a fiver on a double of Waterford and Mayo. So if Waterford win, God knows what's going to happen with Mayo. But
the country will go nuts as well, not just in those counties in general. But even last year, like Mayo, I remember being so impressed in the first 10-15 minutes till that goal went in, and all of a sudden the heads dropped. I think this year, a goal goes in, maybe the heads won't drop as much. There's
not that, like I said, there's not that air of desperation about them, because they're not playing for, the thing about COVID this year is that you're not playing for 40,000 Mayo fans in the stadium. You're actually playing for yourselves and their families, and it's a different thing than they've got the weight of the county on them, and the Mayo fans are probably the best in the country, the way they travel and the noise they bring and the colour. I think that can be a burden, and that air of desperation that we've seen from Mayo, where they put in bad tackles, and for example, that split second where Donny Vaughan gets sent off against John Small and that All-Ireland, and it changes it. Once John Small gets sent off, the game's changed, and then for Vaughan to get sent off, remember in that collision.
Yeah, really. But even going back to those finals, Sean, sorry to cut across you again, but so because I want to just bring this on a quick point on Dublin All-Ireland finals last couple of years before we leave it for the day with the funding, I do want to just touch on it very briefly. So they beat Mayo by 1 in that replay. They beat them in the semi-final replay 2015. They beat them by 1 after replay in 2016, and they beat them by 1, and that was Mayo's peak. And Andy Moore not mentioned those years 2015 to 17. That was when they had the crack at the Dubs. But since then, 2018. Dublin beat Tyrone by 6. Now you can argue last year was the 2019 was a replay. And then Dublin won the replay by 6. You can also argue that the sending off had a massive factor. Dublin would probably have beaten Kerry the same score, and they beat them in the replay. It just seems the last couple of years, because the arguments from like Hill 16 Army and the usual kind of Twitter accounts is look at the All-Ireland finals, and they have been close. And to be fair, looking at the stats there, they were all close bar maybe the last 2 years, and last year's first half of the replay and the first game were really close games. But I guess it's always the fear that yes, we're just crying out for one good game from Dublin. It's usually, or one team to put a game up to Dublin. It's usually in the final, where we didn't really get that in 2018. We got in 2019, thank God, and we're hoping to get it this year. But it's just every year Dublin will be up there. And the reason the funding is brought up is not because the money has allowed Dublin to kick these points. These are sensational players like Fenton, Kilkenny, Cluxton are unbelievable. It's just the fear is that the funding is there to allow them to spend on other stuff, and it's like everything. If you have the best physical environment to create a footballer, like Fenton, like Andy Moore again touched on this, Fenton, Kilkenny, they were taught a lot better than everyone else in the country, Dublin coaching when they were 12 or 13 in clubs. So when the rest of counties are putting GDOs and development squads and stuff like that, Dublin put them in the club associated with the school, and they just benefited from those coaches, and then the S&C coaching as a result. And that's where the kind of issue is, because Dublin can attract sponsorship where they can kind of pay for that themselves. And it is just a bit of a mess, the GA funding. It just means Dublin will always be up there, which, is what they were looking for initially, I guess. But what's your quick thoughts on this? I only want to spend a couple of minutes before, because we touched on it last week.
A few things on that is, for someone like Kieran Kilkenny, he's a very skilled hurler as well, and he's from a new club. When he started, he was one of the first year groups. So I'm not too sure about certain players. So Kieran Kilkenny's club is 20 years old. When Kieran Kilkenny started, it was one of the first few years, and they talk about volunteers in GA, but that was, club started from nothing. So I'm not sure, Kieran Kilkenny is so talented. Paul Mannion played underage soccer for Ireland, all these kind of stuff, Michael Dare, basketball, all that. Naturally there's going to be a couple of players that are simply from the GA, the coaching and whatever. A few things in the All-Ireland. Look, come back to last year, David Clifford hit 4 wides in the first game in the first 10 minutes.
Kerry should have won the first game.
Yeah, and that's before the red card.
Then Mayo should have won the 2016 and the 2017 final.
And that's like...
So it is a different outlook
if that
happened.
Yeah.
So it's not just what has happened. It's just the fact that Dublin has somehow managed to win that 5 in a row. People forget that the first 3 were like 1 score games, and then the 2011-13 was a different team, or a different kind of team.
Yeah.
It's just maybe the last couple of years, but like you said, the first game
Like
last year.
if David Clifford hits two of them, and that's with 15 on the pitch, you could top at the red card and whether it was or not. But the Tyrone game as well, goal after 30 seconds or a minute and 30 seconds of count, that kills the game. No matter, Tyrone kind of to beat Dublin, I think you kind of have to get up and early and not be chasing for 70 minutes. And I think that was a huge factors. And look, Dublin probably would have beaten Tyrone whether they got an early goal, with the way it worked out. But I still think, look, there is hope for Mayo. And I think, look, as a Dublin fan, naturally you want Dublin to win. Personally, I think if there is a team to beat Dublin, I think it fully deserves to be Mayo. What they've brought to GA what they brought to Gaelic football over the last 6 or 7 seasons, there's been a lot labelled at them. Probably a lot fairly, some unfairly. The celebrity losers, there's the Aidan O'Shea taking a selfie with a fan after a game. There's all that stuff, and all that has built up, and some of it, like I said, fairly and unfairly. And I think, that county and the year everyone's had, look, I want Dublin to win, of course I do. But I think there would be something special about Waterford and Mayo winning. And look, we'll discuss Limerick and Waterford in a few weeks. But like I said to you yesterday,
next week. It's on
Sunday,
Sunday,
next week. Sorry, but a lot of people don't maybe talk about why Limerick have been a success in the last 5 or 6 years and why they've got it right at underage and who's funding it and where's the money coming from. And JP McManus has played a huge part in Limerick's success over the last few years. And I'm taking nothing away from Limerick because, like I said, they have some of the best hurlers in the country. The likes of Gerard Hegarty. Why is he such an athlete? So I think there is a lot of that sort of to and fro with Dublin and why they are special and is it funding. But I think, I think the Mayo.
Go on.
I think the Mayo players that are going to be sat on Tuesday they're not. Are they in the dressing room? No one knows with COVID. But those, Clark, O'Shea, O'Connor, Keegan, guys who've soldiered for years, they're going to be going, right, whatever happens, come 7:00 on Sunday the 19th, we are Mayo always leave it on the pitch, but we are going to hammer it.
It's going to be a great game, isn't it? Yeah. But the last thing on that funding thing, I know anymore, and the frustration is they know Dublin are working hard, but it's just everyone's trying to get the other counties to catch up, and he's saying they are trying, it's not that people aren't working hard. And I just think everyone's kind of getting lost. There's too many one side and the other. I think there's somewhere in the middle. I think a lot of people can meet and talk. And let's start not cutting the funding is the wrong way of putting it, because the GA has to strive in Dublin, but there needs to be a way of implementing that in other counties. I think doing it in a fairer way and try maybe, because it was 2004, Dublin needed help. Now, 31 counties need help, or that's obviously an exaggeration, but because otherwise there will have to be something changes if it keeps going the way it's going.
Yeah, and I think everyone needs to remember that no matter what you think of Dublin is, the GA make a lot of money off Dublin. Right, Dublin have grown the game in terms of the appeal and sponsorship and all that sort of stuff, and Sky coming involved, and you take National League games in Croke Park and all the money that Dublin make, and that I think a lot of county boards, like I said to you, if they are to put pressure, they've got to put pressure on the GA, and they've got to come out. And if you're a member of a elite club in Laois, you've got to put pressure on your county board members, to go why isn't this being done? Why aren't we progressing? And the county board members will say, well, we get a lot of money off the GA and this is what we do with it. But look, at the end of the day, Dublin are getting, the figures are out there, and I'm sure loads of people have seen them. But I think, like I said, until the GA themselves stop treating Dublin as a bit of a cash cow, I'm not sure how much will change. Like I said before, I'm not in favour of splitting Dublin into 2 or 3. I don't think it'll work. The problem is there's no dramatically quick fix to this, and I think that's the problem, and I think discussion is needed, and I know there is a little bit more, but I don't see
people Dublin fans get upset about the discussion happening, and maybe some of from the other side, obviously certain individuals on Twitter are very personal with some of their attacks and stuff, but I do think it's important to not lose perspective of it, and everyone knows it's a phenomenal Dublin team. We're only just saying going forward, and everyone's like, why can't you talk about funding after it? Because there's all eyes are on GA over the next 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas. So I do think it's important to mention it, and I think the answer, like you said, Sean, somewhere in the middle. And look, I think this year is probably amplified with the knockout and Kerry and Donegal, poorly managed. But it's just looking at Kerry now, they have a new management team who will come in there now. It'll take them 2 or 3 years to peak in that. You're just kind of wondering where the next threat is going, unless it is coming from Mayo this year, which would be absolutely amazing. So,
and there is like, I don't think that there's been stuff happening in the last few weeks that I'm sure John Costello, as chairman of the county board, has gone like, Jesus, you could have done with this, some announcements and some things going on where you're like, I'm sure John Costello probably would think it does make my life easier, but we've seen what's happened. And people are talking, and I agree, like when you see the money that has been worked through Dublin GA and the sponsorship and people talking about the sustainability of it and the land that Dublin GA owns, why isn't Parnell Park being developed properly? And maybe there is restrictions with the Clontarf Golf Club on the terrace end and whether they can extend it there. But look, I think until Dublin stop playing games in Croke Park and making money for the GA, I don't see a huge amount changing, even with
Don Horan's president of the GA as well, who's coincidentally at Dublin as well, which I don't think for optics is possibly, that shouldn't have happened anyway.
But also look, there is an issue with, and it's not just a GA thing, but it's a huge issue in Ireland with everything is centered around Dublin, and
it's an Irish problem.
Yeah, it
not
is
necessarily a GA problem. And people saying the population was always there, yeah, but it's just growing. It might be stalled a bit with COVID, but in general, the population disparity between urban and rural areas has just gone that way. Since that 2004 plan. So it's not just been the fun, it's been a combination of a load of small things, which people kind of seem to wrap their head around. It's a lot of small things. And like we mentioned, Dublin also winning by a point, a couple of All-Irelands, kick of a ball, 2015 was one score as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's a combination of loads of different things that has led to this, I think. And it's important not to lose perspective of that when having a debate on it. But I don't like this side and I don't like this side kind of coming in with all this both personal attacks at each other. That's just getting anyone absolutely nowhere. And it was happening 2 or 3 years ago and it's just keep happening and no one's getting anywhere with it. So I think a bit of perspective and need to meet in the middle a bit more, just in general, not just on this topic, but on all topics.
A lot of the Dublin team's parents are from, Kerry and, the likes of the Brogan brothers and Cian O'Sullivan and Conor Callahan. Their parents aren't from Dublin. And that is a huge thing with, when people move into Dublin for work and, their players go up, of course they're going to, represent the county where they've spent their whole life. And that's, there hasn't been exceptions really of, I can't remember too many Dublin players that have, maybe moved and gone down to represent their parents' county. I think Kevin Nolan, who was the man of the match in the 2011 final, went up to Monaghan or Cavan. But I think it's not done. And I think that's, Dublin is growing as a city and a population and a county. And it's probably only getting bigger. And I think, look, a lot of it, and a small problem as well, is the likes of Chris Barrett, say, for example, from Mayo, working in Dublin, playing his club football in Dublin, to go back to Mayo training is, a 3-hour drive. And there's a lot, like, obviously there's so much pressure on players and young players that are, in college in DCU or UCD, and to travel home and inter-county training and meeting halfway. But that has always been an issue as well.
But again, it's always been an issue. It's always been an issue, but it's more common than it was maybe 10 years ago.
And Micheál Hertig used to coach the Kerry lads who are up in Dublin, because he was living in Dublin or whatever at the time. So I think that's not just a current issue, but I think it obviously adds to the problem. Well,
look, and even Kieran Cunningham, who's a chief sports writer in The Sun, I think his own club in Enniskillen, at one stage they were training in Enniskillen, which is 70 miles away, and in another county.
The
to
Irish
make it a little
Star,
easier. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to make it a little easier for the majority of players living in Dublin. So there you go. And a nice light-hearted end. And he said, because I think it was a Joe Brody talking about amalgamating counties, or someone was. He said if they try and he's from Donegal, if they try and amalgamate Donegal and Tyrone, he's emigrating. So the lot, you never know. It could be a bit of fun with all those amalgamations. But look, we'll leave it there for this episode. And we've got an interview coming up on Wednesday, and then we'll have a preview on Thursday, or our Premier League predictions, but we'll definitely look ahead to the All-Ireland hurling final as well. It's a busy week. So Kieran Cunningham, the Irish Daily Star, the chief sports writer of the Irish Daily Star. So that's it. So I'll leave it there. All that's left to say is goodbye from Sean.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from myself. We'll chat to you during the week. Have a great week.